Good afternoon. Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Happy Wednesday. Can you believe we only have today and then 3 more sessions? That is wild. So can't believe it. Also really excited for you to still be here and learning and showing up and learning new things. So kudos to you. Let me cast the vision of where we're headed for our remaining sessions. Today we're going to talk about the difference between logical questions and emotional questions. So who here has taken bold? And you probably know a statement about emotion versus logic. Who can tell me what that is? Luis, go ahead.
Um, Logic makes you think, emotion makes you act.
Bingo, exactly. How many of us have done something that maybe we knew logically might not make the most sense, but emotionally we were like, I don't care. I'm in, I'm doing it. You might be married to the person that you were thinking, this doesn't make logical sense, but I love them. Emotion makes us act. And I'm kind of joking here, of course. But there are a lot of things that we can do that don't necessarily make sense. Oh, Louise typed in. That's funny. And we're going to talk a lot today about how to ask emotional questions versus logical questions and how to know the difference. There's a time and place for either. Then today is actually our last training around phone skill. So conversation skill. We're not going to learn any more language patterns after today. So today is the last one, and you will have had everything that I have to teach you in regards to the foundational language patterns. Next week, and I'm mentioning this because I want you to start thinking now. Next week, we're going to do financial goal planning. Now, I know some of you already did this for the year, but I want to make sure that you know how to do it and you recalibrate. We're just past first quarter, and it would be good for you to look and see how am I doing on pace to hit the financial goal I set for myself. And if you're here and you haven't set a financial goal, what we do next week will help you know how to do that. Okay. It's not just picking a random number, there is a science to it. And then the week after that, we're going to talk about how to make sure you achieve the financial goal that you set for yourself. I don't know about you guys, but when I first got into real estate, I often felt like I'm just going to show up and do the best that I can. And hopefully I make the money I want to make. I'll figure it out when I do my taxes. Anybody ever operate that way? Okay. Some of you are nodding your head yes. Some of you are looking at me like, you dread the way that I ran my business when I first started, but that's what it was. I had never had business training and I just thought, well, this number sounds good. And I just know I'm going to work really hard every day and hopefully I hit the number. That's kind of what that looked like for me. And I think that's fairly common. So we're going to talk about actually the science of how can you make sure you hit the income goal. And then our very last session on April 23rd is going to be Q&A for anything left that I didn't cover that you want to ask, or if there's anything that I covered that you want to go deeper into. So that will be kind of like a catch-all. Let me just make sure you have everything you need before we part ways. Sound good? That is the plan. Awesome. So I'll remind you again later, but for now, I would begin thinking through what is it that's important to you? What are your values? And what I mean by that is one of my values is to be very present for my friends and family, my loved ones, super, very incredibly important to me. Well, that actually feeds into a financial goal. It might not seem like it, but I work hard so that I can have additional days off during the week, so that I can have more time with friends and family. So I've ordered my business that I work about 3 days a week, which some of you have emailed me. It's because I'm here 3 days a week and my assistant is out. So that's why. So I'll get back to you, I promise. But the point I'm making is my values helped me figure out what my income goal would be. And once I knew my income goal, that helped me figure out, well, how do I want to achieve that in alignment with my values? So just leading into next week, I want you to just kind of roll around in your brain. What are your values? What's important to you? And what financial goals might you have along with that? Make sense? Perfect. And we'll do a deep dive next week. I'll walk you through how to do that and how to do that well. All right, well, let's jump into today. So 15 out of 18, how to ask the right question for the moment. So we're going to do a quick review of open versus closed questions. You should know this really well by now. And then we're going to talk about emotional versus logical and then tie everything together. Quick reminder, as we always do, make sure you follow the law. Just make sure you follow the law and you'll be good. All right, so let's talk real quick about the types of questions. So we have open and closed. And again, this is all review. I expect you know this, but open is multiple words in the answer. Closed would be short, one word. Okay. Now, open, I personally teach it that there are two types of open, and you have open beginning, which is, remember that analogy I gave you way back forever ago? And I said, think of if we were trying to plant a tree, we would need to scoop dirt in one consistent spot to get a hole nice and deep in order to put the tree in there. Does this ring a bell to anyone? It was a while ago. So picture that when I say open beginning, think of it like I'm about to go deep, but I got to break ground somewhere. So I'm going to do that with an open beginning question. So that might be moving is a lot of work. What put that on your radar? In a non-work setting, non-real estate, I might say, wow, I haven't seen you in a month. What was the best part of your month? I'm launching into a conversation. Okay. Then we have digging. So once I've asked that opening question to start a new thing, start a new conversation, anything they tell me, I'm going to turn into a question. So if they say the best part of my month was spending time with my grandkids, what would be a good open-ended follow-up question to that using their words? So the best part of their month was spending time with their grandkids. Somebody give me a question.
Tell me some of the things you did. Oh, wait.
No, that's fine.
Tell me some of the things you and your grandchildren did together.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. So I would call that a probe. It's not technically a question, but I consider it
what are
question.
some of the things? What are some of the things you and your grandchildren did together?
Yes, but what you first did is fine. So think of it open-ended questions, open-ended probes. So tell me more is more of a statement, but it still works. It's still totally correct. So yeah, she used grandkids. What did you do? That will take it deeper. And if I said, well, we went swimming, we went to the beach, we got all the family together and had a meal together. Somebody else, what would be a follow-up question you could ask to that using my words? Everybody's so quiet.
I'm going to go again.
Hold on. I want to see if somebody else I think you've got it. I want to give somebody else a chance. Go ahead, Helly.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're digging down, just, did you go out for your meal, or did you, potluck it at home or barbecue or whatever?
How could you ask that in a not did you? Because did you makes it closed. Did you makes it a yes or no? But I like where you're going with it. So how could you ask the same idea, but make it more open-ended?
Does your family prefer eating in or going out? And what do you love about it?
Well, it's still closed, right? Because
Still closed.
You prefer in or out.
Right.
So you could cheat off this. You could lean on one of these.
Right.
So what would you say?
I'd be going to describe what is important about family meals.
That's perfect.
About you. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if I'm saying that was the best part of my whole entire month, and then you ask, and I tell you, yeah, we had a family meal, we did this and that. Describe for me what's important to you about a family meal. And now I might say, well, it's getting everyone together. We only do that maybe twice a year, Christmas, and then this event we had. And I love just seeing my whole family. It makes me so happy. Do you see how that's just going to get you further than a did you go in or did you stay in or did you go out? Do you prefer potluck or a restaurant? Do you see the difference there? Yeah. So Helly, I'm glad you did that because I think that's what a lot of people do. Actually, that's why I wanted to practice. You are definitely not the only one. I was coaching someone earlier today individually, and he also kept going, did you, could you, would you? And you just have to watch it. Here's the other thing people do. They will ask a very quality open-ended question and then follow it up and make it closed. So let me give you an example. Stephanie says me. Yeah, so it's common, and just know yourself so that you can catch yourself doing it and improve, okay? So let me think of what that could be. Well, I'll just go back to what we just said. What's the best part of having a family meal to you? Is it the kids or the food or the location? Well, I started off, what's the best part of a family meal to you? And if I had just stopped there, that would have been a great question, right? But commonly what people do is, what's the best part of the family meal to you? and then we give them multiple choices. And it might be none of those things, actually. So just watch for those things. Just keep a watch out. Okay, so let's go back here real quick. This is why we're reviewing. Okay, so we have open, beginning to start the conversation, digging is using their words to take it further. Then we have closed questions, which is short one-word answers. So even the, do you prefer to go in? I keep saying it backwards. Do you prefer to go out or stay in? Well, it's kind of locking me into one, so it's still closed, even though it's not yes or no, because I only have two options, go out or stay in. So a lot of people will say closed is only yes or no, and it's actually bigger than that. If I say, which side of town do you want to live on? That's closed, right? Because it's going to be east or west. Do you prefer red or blue? Still closed. It's going to be red or blue. So anything that's a multiple choice, it's not just yes or no. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So here's examples for you. Back to real estate examples, open beginning questions. Moving's a lot of work. We'll put that on your radar. My favorite for an open house, I have a guy who's very skilled with open houses, and he uses this one a lot. There's a lot of things you could be doing today. What brought you to an open house? That's a great one for an open house. What prompted you to consider moving? What else is not what I would ask them? I'm asking you guys. What else? Does anybody have a question that you use that you want to double check before we finish class to say, is this a good one to start with? Now is your chance. Stephanie, go ahead.
I saw you were on my website looking at 123 Main Street. What intrigued you about that house?
Good. Yep, that's open-ended. My only thought on that is they might tell you, they could potentially say it's close to my family, which makes it more motivation oriented. They also could say, I like the style of it and so forth, which is going to keep you kind of away from motivation. So I think it could work, Stephanie, but it's not, I don't know if it's the best opening. I could see saying, I saw you looking at 123 Main Street on my website, which is awesome. What has you thinking about making a move? And that's a lot more clear that it's really about motivation. Yeah, it's a good question. But I like that it was open. And you'll see as we go today, I'll have some examples where they could go either way and your follow-up question can determine. So it's just one of those, the path of least resistance. What intrigued you about that house could lead to motivation, but it could lead to logic, and it might force you to have a good follow-up question or just straight up ask for motivation.
Can I ask a question relating to this type of question?
Yes.
I was on a call yesterday and the lady, it was an expiry listing. It expired in June and it's still not listed. And so, and she doesn't live in the house. And I asked, oh, so, because I wanted to dig for the motivation, like, why hasn't it been listed? And I asked, well, tell me a little bit more about this property. Are you renting it out right now? Or, I saw that it was expired last June.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. And then she went to like a 15-minute spiel about how she hates renters, and she did it one time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, what would Anna Kruger do here? I think that was an opportunity to have a great a more intentional open-ended question that could have gotten me a clear answer. So like, what would you have said when you in that situation?
Yeah. First of all, what would Anna Kruger do is not a question you want to ask in every situation, but with expireds, I can help you out.
Okay.
Yeah. So with expireds and, gosh, we could do a whole training just on expireds, but the best thing with expireds, that you want to recognize, and I'll answer you, Patricia. And if we have time at the end, I'll do a deeper dive into the question on just expireds in general of how to talk to them.
Yeah.
But with expireds, a lot of them are frustrated when you reach out to them. And it's not because you're reaching out to them, it's because they just expired. So I would compare it to, I'm trying to think of how to put this. I will actually use myself from this morning to make the emotional connection. I was up very, very, very late last night, and I had a commitment to go to the gym at 6:15 this morning. So I had extra resistance, but there was extra resistance, right? Like normally it's like, okay, I'm up, I'm going, don't necessarily love what I'm about to do, but I'm going to go meet my friends. It'll be fine. This morning it was like, I want to die. I do not want to go. That's how expireds are. They're in the, like, I want to die. I was up late. I don't want to go to the gym this morning. So there's like extra resistance. So it's even more important to ask them about their motivation out of the gate. But what I learned is you have to say what originally made you want to list a few months ago.
Okay.
Because if I say what makes you want to move, a lot of them will be like, well, I don't want to move anymore. I'm over it. This morning, my
Mhm.
gym partner and I, for 20 minutes, went back and forth. I'm not out of bed yet. Are you? Are you going to go? Well, I'm going to say. And finally, we were like, can we just go? Because I know we'll have dopamine if we go and do something that we said we would do. And if we don't, we're going to feel bad the rest of the day. So let's just get up. The point being, there's a lot more resistance, and there's what our conversation in text, I ended up saying, I told her what my goals were, and I said, I better get up. And it's same thing with expireds of you got to remind yourself, and they have to remind themselves of why they're doing it. What I find with expireds, if I go straight for when are you going to relist and blah, 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 I don't want to, I'm over it. Realtors are terrible. The market sucks. It's all that stuff. So if I just say, hey, Patricia, I saw your house came off the market. I'd love to help. When you listed a few months ago, what made you want to do that?
Mm.
We all can
I
agree,
like that.
even the expired themselves, that 6 months ago they had interest because they
Mm.
listed. They can't argue about that.
Yes.
So we can go further later if we have time at the end of class, or that could be an extra help call question, or
Yeah.
even a very last call question. So there's a couple opportunities. I'm going to get back to the training for now, but that would be
Yeah.
a good opener for expireds.
Okay.
Yeah. When you listed a few months ago, what made you want to do that? And then, by the way, the transition, you're going to spend 3 minutes on it. And then it's real easy to say, well, gosh, if I could still help you do that, would you want to? And because they just re-energized themselves about their goals, okay, yes. And it's a legit thing. I'm going to the Pacific Northwest in 2 months, and I want to go hiking. And I'm trying to condition myself to hike. And the Pacific Northwest has some very steep hills. So that's literally what I reminded myself of this morning. I could not go, but in less than 60 days, I'll be in the Pacific Northwest on a trail. Do I really want to be super out of breath? No. I guess I better go. That's what got me there this morning.
Great job going.
Well, thank you. Thank you. But that is the kind of the whole point. Like it's, you got to have your motivation. And that's why I give that analogy. Cause I think a
Bring
lot
them
of
back
us
to
can
that.
relate. I
Yeah.
think a lot of us can relate to that. Okay. Let's keep going. Good question. Oh, does anybody else have an open-ended question? You're wondering, is this a good one? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I don't have a question about that. And I'll leave you with this and you can come back to it whenever it's convenient. What about the people, myself, my brother, other people included, that have the habit of asking a question, but then not pausing for the answer, just out of habit
Yeah.
continuing on?
Hit mute on your phone if you're in a phone call. You can't do much about it in person. And I know that sounds funny, and that's how I broke the habit myself. My manager had that idea for me when I was like 25 and bad at this. And she said, she was kind of exasperated. She's like, Anna, you literally just have to hit it mute on your phone because you're going to keep talking. So ask your golden question and hit mute so that when your mouth keeps going, they can't hear you. And then doing that on the phone helped translate to in person. So that was like my practice for in person. Okay, let's keep going. It's an entertaining phone call today, or a webinar call. All right, digging. So now you're going to take whatever they said and turn it into an open-ended question. And guys, I can't overemphasize enough. If you just memorize these 5 questions, you're good. This could work for about anything. If somebody says, I want a pink pony, great. What would having a pink pony mean for your family? Tell me more about wanting a pink pony. They could say, I want to live as far away from my mother-in-law as possible. Great. How will living as far away from your mother-in-law as possible, how will that impact you? Do you see how no matter what they give you, if you just know these 5 questions, you're good to go. You don't have to think about it. So when I first started, I had the impression I had to know 20 plus questions. And I actually had a huge list on my wall that overwhelmed me because that was a lot to memorize. And I finally realized if I just got good at these 5 things, I don't really need to know much else, honestly. So I would really encourage you, if you haven't already, internalized these things, and this is going to help you do much better. And every blank, of course, is their words, whatever they just said. Okay, closed questions. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. I use these a lot in class to make sure that you understand. Closed questions are for checking for understanding or gaining commitment. So, are you ready to move forward? That's a commitment question. Does that make sense? That's a clarifying question. Are we on the same page? Right? And then I'm asking for a yes or no, and it's appropriate. You just want it in the right place. I was making egg salad the other day, and I didn't realize the pepper on my home pepper container, the lid was kind of loose. And I went to go like this, and all the pepper came out. It's a little too much, a little too much. So think of closed questions like the pepper in your food. I want a little bit, but too much makes it taste really bad. It's overwhelming. So you just want to sprinkle these in here and there. So now let's talk about emotion versus logical questions. And this is more the new content for today. So emotion, I don't mean that they're crying, although they could be. You know, maybe you're talking with someone and the reason they want to move actually has a lot of emotion attached. Or maybe somebody just passed away and they need to sell their childhood home because their mom just passed away and they're emotional. So they could, but I don't mean generally speaking that they're going to be crying on you. It's more just what's the reason they're moving? What is the reason that they are doing that? On average, again, it's 3 minutes. I've had past students say they went on Amazon or Etsy and bought a 3-minute timer. I think it's a great idea. Oh, look, Louise has one right there. Does it beep at you? There you go. A sand timer would work too. But that's a marker because I've studied this repeatedly over the years, and I just find that you don't really have it till you're about 3 minutes in. So have you ever been on a call and you're like, I think I have their motivation, and you realize you're 30 seconds in? So I do that to help you, kind of like a self-check of if I haven't been talking to them 3 minutes, I probably don't actually have their motivation here. So keywords of the questions you would ask would be impact, significance, or meaning. If I'm having one of those words in the question, it's probably emotion focused. What's the impact? What's the significance? What's the meaning? You could also add in your notes there the word importance. What's the importance? So again, if you have those words, you're pretty much a done thing. It's emotion. Logic is more pre-qualification focused or pre-screening, if you want to think of it as pre-screening. And that's the what needs to happen. So that would be where most objections pop up because, motivation is there or not. But when I'm getting into what's your timeline, how much do you want to spend, who are the decision makers, that's where the objections pop up, right? What's your timeline? I just heard you say you want to live closer to your family. You want to help take care of your aging parents. What's your ideal time frame for that? Oh, I don't know. I want to wait a few years. I want to wait to see what happens to the market. Bam, we have an objection. So that's where most objections are going to pop up for you. And keywords here are time frame, price range, who are the decision makers, things like that. Remember, part 1 of the conversation is motivation. Part 2 of the conversation is pre-screening. That's where this would happen. Okay, so I want you to use the chat box, and you can use E or L. So E for emotion, L for logic, or you can type the whole thing out. I don't care. But I'm going to put a question up on the screen, and I want you to evaluate which one is it? Okay. And some of them are designed to be a little tricky to force you to really think about it. If I put one up and you're not sure, answer it in your own mind and ask yourself, is my answer motivation focused or logic focused? And that'll help you maybe get some clarity. So what type of home are you looking for? Is that emotional or logical? Yeah, a lot of you are typing in logical. Yep, I agree. And that's because they're going to say something like a ranch or a log home or a mountain home. It's more just logical, right? It's just a practical fact. What happens if you don't move? And by the way, I wouldn't ask that till about minute 2:45 in the 3 minutes of motivation. And you guys said it, emotion. Yeah. It would be weird to ask that early on in motivation, but once I've uncovered it and I have this story, right? They want to take care of their parents. They want to, be near their nieces and nephews as they're growing up. They want to go back to their hometown and be around family in their aging years. Now it would be appropriate to say, hey, what happens if you don't move to be able to take care of your aging parents and around your nieces and nephews and back at your home base? What would that mean for you or not mean for you? That's more appropriate than right out of the gate. But yeah, that is a motion. What impact will this have on your family? There's a key word. What impact will this have on your family? Yeah. Emotion. Impact is the key word. Impact always is emotion. This one's tricky. Describe for me your ideal home. Describe for me your ideal home.
That one
And
could be either.
Well, hold on. Let's use the chat box. Hang on a second. It's because I want to give people a minute to think about it. And then Stephanie, you're right. So say what you said again.
It could be either.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's mostly logical. Most people, because I'm saying describe. I used to be an English teacher, so I'm going to nerd out for just a minute. Describe home. If I take out all the other words, what I'm saying is describe home. Describe your ideal home. So I'm saying, I'm not saying describe your motivation. I'm not saying describe what it would mean for me. But because it's not super clear, they could go either way. Most people, though, will go into, I wanted to have 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms with an acre lot and a pool. That's how most people will go with it. But it actually is technically a logical question. It is actually a logical question, even though I think people might perceive it either way. Helly, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually think that what type of home are you looking for also goes both ways. That's why I didn't say anything, because to me, because it depends on what it means to them and why. I'm looking for this because why? Because it's an emotional reason. That's just my thinking.
Yeah, well, and part of why we're doing this today is to help figure out the best question to ask. So if you want a motivation answer, be very clear that it's a motivation question. Helly, I actually agree with you, but it is a logical question. And same thing down here, I agree with Stephanie, because as a human with you guys, I get it. Like some people will answer it. Some people will answer more than you've asked. But it is actually a logical question. What type of home? Describe the home. Not describe why you want the home, not describe why you want that type of home. Do you see the difference there?
I see the difference. Okay, I see where you're coming from. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. That's just my nerdy previous English teacher coming out. It is technically logical. And part of why I put these in here, if I can be quite honest with you guys, is I wanted them to be a little bit tricky to force you to think about it. And could we all agree that because it could go either way, maybe we need better questions, right? So if I want a motivation question, let me make a really good, clear motivation question, right? Yeah, Deb says that helps to clarify you're asking about the type of question, not the type of response you're looking to get. Yeah. I mean, we've all had it happen. I could ask someone, how was your day? And they could answer me something totally not related to that question, right? But what I can control is the type of question I'm asking. Cool. All right, let's keep going. I have a few more for you. Tell me what's important to you about your next home. People take forever to answer this one because they're like, ugh, I don't know. Tell me what's important to you about your next home. Yeah, it honestly could go either way. It really could. So the follow-up question is what will determine it. So again, is this the best question? I actually think this could be a great question. Okay, we're in class 15, so can I go real high level with you? I would never ask that question if I'm trying to get motivation. What's important to you about your home? Okay, that's not a great motivation question. But I like to get as much motivation as I can out of people. I would totally ask that in the pre-screening because it is kind of open and I know I might get a little more motivation squeaked out. Does that make sense? So I would ask that in pre-screening. I would not ask that in motivation because it could go either way. And again, if I want motivation, let me be really good at asking very obvious motivation questions. Like, moving is a lot of work. What makes you want to move? That would be weird if they started telling me the details of the house, right? That's pretty clear what I'm asking them. This one, though, I'm going to save it for pre-screening. And what I'm expecting is they'll probably tell me what kind of house they want and how many bedrooms, bathrooms, stuff like that. But it's so open-ended that they might just squeak out a little bit more motivation, which awesome. Does that make sense, everyone? That is a closed question to check for understanding. Does that make sense? Okay. Now here's the deal. We're all humans. And do you ever ask a question and you're like, ooh, I could have worded that better? Or you ask a question and they answer you differently than what you meant. So their answer kind of told you, oh, I don't think they quite understood what I was going for there. So ask a follow-up question. So if you realize like, oops, I just asked a question and I meant to be emotional, but it kind of came out logical, just ask a follow-up question. Okay. And just swing it back to where it needs to be. So what's the reason that's important to you? That'll take it back to emotion if that's what you meant to ask. What will that do for you? That'll take it back to emotion if that's what you meant to ask. I'm having a picture pop in my head right now. Anybody here ever go mini golfing? I mean, who here hasn't gone mini golfing? I feel like it's a pretty common activity. Joy, gotta go mini golfing. Not that you're missing out on much, though, I gotta be honest. So it's fine. But with mini golfing, you know how you get the ball down near the end and then you miss and it ends up over somewhere weird and then you gotta hit it again and like kind of hit it a few times to get it where it needs to go. I'm almost picturing that. You know, had I asked a stellar question out of the gate, the ball would have gone right where I wanted it to go. But because I didn't hit it quite perfectly, I need a follow-up question or an extra hit. The follow-up question will help you get it in the right spot. So what I'm trying to say here is don't worry if you're not perfect, okay? If you ask a question, just follow it up with a good one to swing it back in the right direction. Now, if I wanted it to be logical, I could say, describe for me the layout. So if I wanted them to tell me 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and they're going on about their dog, I could say, hey, describe for me the layout of that. And then I'll get it back where I want it to be. Are we good on that one? Okay. All righty, let's do a little bit more here. What's your ideal time frame? Think about the answer. What's your ideal time frame? What am I asking about? Time frame. So that's logic. I think what throws people off is the word ideal, maybe. But if you take that word out, it's just what's your time frame? Totally just a logical question. You know, summer, fall, whatever that is. What is your ideal time frame? Describe for me the importance of this decision. And the key word there is importance. So that's your clue, importance. That definitely would swing it towards emotion. Yeah. This one should be easy. Moving is so much work. What made you start thinking about it? Yeah, that one's definitely emotional. Definitely emotional. And by the way, if you have questions as we go as to why, I thought it was logical. Why is it emotional? Ask, because a lot of people in this class, about 2/3 of the class watch the recording after the fact. And so they may have a question that they're not here to ask. And if you ask it, it'll help them out when they watch the recording. So if you have any questions as to, I don't get why that one's emotional, speak up so I can help you and everybody else. Okay. So here's the idea. We started this program with this, and remember I said today's the last day we're really talking through relationship-based phone skill of language patterns and things like that. And I want to remind you, before next couple of weeks, we're more into the business planning side. Our job is to listen to their story and strategize and educate them to help them get what they want. Remember, you really are a buyer coach or a seller coach. Yes, you might be a real estate agent, but the job of a coach, remember, is to help the client hit the goal. So anytime I have someone come to me for coaching, or if a sports person, if it's a sports coach, the first conversation should be, what do you want to get out of this? What do you want to celebrate in 90 days? Or what do you want to celebrate at the end of the basketball season? What are we going to be happy that happened? And what we're doing is we're establishing a goal. So with your clients, you could even ask them at the end of all this, what do you want to be celebrating? That could be a great question. But you are a coach. You are a coach. So your job is to find out, well, what is it that they want? And then how can I remove barriers to help them get it? And it could be education. It could be lack of knowledge about the industry and what's happening, things like that. I learned something on a webinar yesterday. In fact, you'll hear this. I'm recording a couple, you know how we do the on-demand releases in this class? You'll have a couple coming here shortly. I recorded a couple yesterday. And I heard a listing agent say something, I just hadn't thought of it this way. But she said a lot of people are perceiving it's a buyer's market right now. And of course, it could be in an individual market. We all live in different places. But she said nationwide, what's happening, she said, imagine that we went to I'm not great with gambling because I don't gamble, but I think she used blackjack as an analogy. And she said, if we go in with $100 and we get it up to $800, that's amazing, right? You could say that's a seller's market. Well, if we end up losing money and we go back to 400, are we still better than where we were? We walked in with 100. So dang it, I wish I had cashed out when I had 800, but I still have 300 extra dollars because I have 400 and I came here with 100, right? And she said that's kind of what the market is right now. And I thought, what a great way to explain that. And that's an education piece, right? That people could use in today's market. Now, know your market. Maybe your market is a buyer's market. I don't know every individual market, of course, but that is that sticks out to me as that's a way to educate. That's a way to strategize and help people see what's happening. So let's take a minute. We're going to do questions in a moment. So hold your questions for just a second. What did you learn from today that may help someone else? Anybody?
I wrote down a couple of things. I wrote down
Awesome.
closed questions are checking for understanding or gaining commitment. Do you have a something similar for the open questions?
What I had there was what was it? It's actually from the slides. Let me go back real quick. Let me just do this. Open questions, because I don't remember how I worded it. It's used to start the conversation and then dig deeper and understand. Just kind of explaining when you would use them and why.
Okay, and then I just wrote part 1 of the conversation is motivation, part 2 of the conversation is pre-screening.
Yeah.
When we pre-screen, we use emotion keywords and or logic keywords.
Yes. Yes. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that. Joy, how about you? What's a takeaway or something you learned today? Oh, you're muted. I just hit the button to unmute you, so I think you have to approve it.
Okay,
There you go.
what I learned today is you said we should just learn 5 questions, that all the questions, the open-ended questions, would be something around these 5 questions. I thought that was good because sometimes, it's like, oh, when am I ever going to know this? But
Yes.
5 questions, I can remember 5 questions.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, sometimes we can have too many voices speaking to us about what we should be doing. And we just got to simplify it sometimes. And yeah, of course, there's more than 5 questions out there. But if you just get really good at 5, you're probably going to have a good career. Get those down, add more later if you want to. Can I give you a little bit of a tangent that speaks to that to hopefully encourage you guys? So I've noticed a trend in people that I coach. For some reason, it's hitting this week. I don't know why, but for some reason, multiple people that I coach are telling me I'm overwhelmed because I'm having too many things, like say this, don't say that. Here's what I should do. Here's what I shouldn't do. There's too many things. I'm hearing too many things. And the analogy I want to give you is maybe 5 weeks ago, I hired a physical therapist to fix my torn knee. I think I've told you I have a torn ACL, MCL, and meniscus all in my right knee. And started physical therapy. I said, I really want to get back to the gym, but I don't want to hurt myself. Do you have a recommendation for someone I could train with that would be good with form? Well, he sent me to a CrossFit gym, which is fun. I don't know if that was the best idea for a torn knee. So then my friend Joel started sending me videos to help me with my knee. And then the local gym, I go to 2 gyms. The other gym had a guy who specializes in people with injury. Okay, that is 4 people telling me what to do with my knee. Okay. And what I started realizing is even if I was going to the gym 4 to 5 days a week, I was feeling bad, like I wasn't doing enough because I couldn't get in all the exercises that all these 4 people were telling me to do. And it started to feel defeating and overwhelming. And about 2 weeks ago, I went to my physical therapist and I just said, you know what? You're the most trained person here out of everyone. Can you just tell me what to do? And I'm going to let go of everyone else. I'm not going to go to the trainer. I'm not going to talk to the guy who works at the gym. And I'm going to tell Joel to quit sending me videos. Can you just tell me what to do? And can I tell you that my performance has gone up physically? Like I'm walking faster, I'm having better cardio, and I'm in a lot less pain. And it's because I had to get clear of, there's a lot of voices talking to me right now, and that's overwhelming. And that can be defeating, overwhelming, discouraging. And I had to kind of get clear on, I just need one strategy. All 4 strategies might actually be great strategies, but I can't deploy 4 different strategies. I need one strategy. And as I've talked with coaching clients this week, I've noticed that when you are a learning-based individual, you can take a ton of classes, right? And what happens when you take a ton of classes and you hear a lot of different voices is they can start to all sound demanding in your head of do this and don't do that and do this. So I just want to encourage you, going back to what Joy said, your job is to set appointments and help people that want real estate. That's your job, right? Ultimately, like your job is to help buyers and sellers get into houses or sell their houses at the most base level. So pick a voice and go all in on that. And try to cut out some of the noise and relieve some of that pressure. And in the physical sense, I've noticed a big difference in doing that with my exercise routine. So I just want to encourage you. Nobody here really had said that, but Joy, when you were like, it's relieving to just have 5 questions I have to learn, it made me think of that. So if that helps anyone here, awesome. Okay, any other insights before I switch it to questions?
One thing I just want to add to that, the example you said you just started listening to your physical therapist because he had the most experience. And so I would just, from my own journey, because I am very learning based, to kind of clear out that clutter is, pick the voice, but pick the voice with the experience, who has the results, who has the numbers, and where you're wanting to go to. Make sure they're actually there. There's just so many people out there that come across as these experts, and like, what have they done? They have sales, so they're not an expert in anything. And so like the way you did it, you picked the physician, the one with the most training. And I think for us, that's what we can be too. We can be that expert for our clients, because imagine them as well with all these opinions and things coming at them when they're going through these processes of buying or selling.
Yes, that's a great way to put that. And use the analogy if you want to. If you're talking to someone and they're like, well, my uncle says this and my dad says this, use the analogy I just gave you if you want. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, to take the analogy further, as you were talking to Patricia, it made me think of this. Week 1, when my physical therapist was awesome, we did exercises and it felt productive. And then every week after that, all he did for 1 hour was try to massage my leg to get it to chill out. And when I finally asked him, I'm like, our last couple of sessions have been really different than the first one. Why is that? And he actually said to me, he said, you're doing too much. So every time you're coming in here, I'm having to try to undo. And part of me is like, well, why didn't you tell me that sooner? Like, I wish you had said something. But he's like, you're doing too much. You're hiking, you're going to CrossFit. You're like, you went from nothing to way too much all at once. And so when you're in here, I'm just trying to repair. You're so locked up from that, we can't really make progress. So, once I started listening to only him and only doing his exercises and just keeping it real simple, the last physical therapy I had was fun again. We went back to doing exercises because he's like, great, You're not coming in here in a really distressed state, so we can actually do something. You know, more and more keeps coming to me from this analogy. You know, it's been really hard is going to the gym and doing basic stuff. Like, I think CrossFit's fun, honestly. I think it's fun to do things that make you feel really powerful. And CrossFit made me feel really powerful. It's really hard to go in and just walk on a treadmill and do some light weights. That's really hard to do. But it's actually getting me further. So my question to you is, what are you doing to the extreme that's actually making it way more complicated? And if you were to just go back to the basics, it would actually lead to your success. What is that for you? So hopefully that helps. All right. I want you to think about what you're going to implement. So let me share this with you real quick here, and then we'll get to questions. So I gave this to you forever ago. You might remember, but in one of our first classes ever, I said, I want you to think about what you're going to implement from today. And I said, if you have 1 to 3 goals, you'll likely do 2 or 3 of them. If you have 4 goals up to 10 goals, you're likely to only do 1. This is based on research. And if you have 11 or more goals, just forget it. Don't bother. So I want you to think through, out of everything you've heard, what would you say are your top 1 to 3 things you want to implement from the training, and just get clear on that. And 2 to 3 goals at a time is really the sweet spot. That's your sweet spot. So just think through, what are the 2 or 3 things I'm going to implement? Now, once you get those implemented, then you can add more. Then you can layer it up. Okay. All right. So for recommendations, I encourage you, record a call if you're legally allowed to, or record yourself practicing, one or the other. If you've tuned out at all, tune back in here. This is a golden nugget that will help your success. Sometimes what happens is we think we sound one way, and when we listen back, we realize we sound different than we thought. Okay. That's true with me, even with webinars. I listen to my own webinars from time to time, and I can't remember what the word is now, but there's a word I used to say that I didn't know I said it a lot, and I had to cut it out, but I had no idea I did that. So there's a lot of value in listening to yourself, either in a recorded call or a practice session. What I want you to do is listen back to yourself. And all I want you to do is write down every question you hear yourself asking, from hello all the way through the call ending. Just write down every question you hear yourself asking. Then when you're all done listening to the call, go back through and label all the questions you wrote down, label them as open or closed, and label them as emotional or logical. If you get in the habit of doing that, that right there could make a huge difference in the quality of your career and your conversations. Massive help. All right. Secondly, practice with people that know the training so they can give you honest feedback, and then just make sure you're going deep enough on that motivation. All right. So let's open it up for questions. We have 10 minutes left. Let's start with today's topic. So before we move on to some totally different topics, let's stick with today. So emotional versus logical questioning. And then once we clear all those out, we'll open it up to any question. All right, Marcy, go ahead.
Okay, so just to summarize what I think I heard, so when we are going through, for instance, the buyer and seller sheet, we start with the emotional questions, like, you know, what's important about selling? Tell me more about that, blah, 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 blah. And
Correct.
then we kind of transition into logical questions once we have their motivation. Well, let's see what we can do to make that happen. Tell me a little bit about the property. Then we transition into logical. Is that kind of how it works?
Yep, you're exactly right. So
Okay.
part 1 of the conversation is motivation, which is that emotional part. And then once we uncover that, we go to part 2, which is pre-screening, and that's the logical part. So you are exactly right.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. And for you, you'll probably just ask, what's the value to you of buying the apartment building? I know you work commercial, so you'll change the questions up a little bit to fit the scenario. But you would do the same thing, same idea.
Okay, got it.
Yep. All right. Who else has a question? I want to read what Stephanie said in here. She said, I had a dilemma this morning on where to allot finances. So many different theories. Yes, that is true. I decided to reach out to Linda McKissick. Good decision. She's a very wealthy woman. And just do what she said. Yeah. You just need one person. You don't need 12. One successful person.
That's what somebody said, make sure they're successful. I figure with a net worth of 100 million, I'll do what she says.
Yeah, she probably knows. Exactly. Yep. Okay. Any other questions before we close out? Okay. For next week, just a quick reminder, and I'll walk you through the activities. You don't have to have your life figured out when you come to the call next week. That is very not the expectation, or I also would not be able to show up. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk through who do you want to be? And that's what I want you to think about. So just roll around in your brain. What kind of adjectives do you want to use to describe you? Because the idea of next week is we are human beings before we are we're actually not human doings, right? But a lot of us, we are in a performance-based industry, are we not? So I think most industries have a level of performance, but I think especially in real estate, it's very performance-driven. That's what awards are assigned for. Like there's a lot of performance-based stuff going on here. And it can feed the monster of I got to perform, I got to do. And what can happen is you can get so focused on doing that you get away from who you actually want to be. So an example, and I'll share more next week, but in 2017, I was knocking out all the stuff on my vision board actually pretty well. Like I was pretty proud of knocking all the stuff out and I couldn't believe it. Like it's actually happening. But I realized like I'm still me. It's not like I had a drastic personality shift or something, but I wasn't real happy with how I was showing up. Like I was never around for my friends because I was always on the road traveling. I wasn't as present with my family as I wanted to be. So I was still me, but I wasn't like my values and my actions weren't aligning. And so I had to kind of go back and say, what adjectives do I want to describe me? So I would encourage you to take some time and think about that. And if you want, there's a book. Actually, I'll look it up on my computer. This is not homework, but there's a really excellent book that I highly recommend. And I actually have given this as assignment to some of the people I coach, and often they're like, oh, another book. And one girl who was very resistant, she's like, I really don't want to read another book, but I'll commit to one chapter. I was like, okay, great. Our next call, she's like, I read the whole book. It was so good. I couldn't put it down. So it's a very good book. You can listen to it on audiobook if you want. But Living Forward, this book right here. And I'll tell you, I've recommended it for years. It's getting harder and harder to find a hard copy. So if you find one, you may just want to snatch it up. Let me click on it here. So you can order it, but also see if they have it on audiobook. I have several clients that have just listened to it. But this book is all about how to make sure you don't climb the ladder of success and realize it's leaning on the wrong wall. Okay. A lot of times in life, it's like we start working and we take the job we can get. And if you're good at it, you might like excel in that job and move up. And then you look up 20 years later and you're like, how in the world am I working in finance? I always said I wanted to work with animals. How did this happen? And it's called drifting. And it's kind of, in the book is talking about how most people spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they do their life. That is very eye-opening to me. So Stephanie said Amazon has it. So Living Forward is the book. If you want to read it before next week or listen to it, that would be a good precursor to what we're going to talk about. Totally not required. So don't burden yourself. If you've got too much on your plate, just let it go. But if you want to, that's a great book. Oh, Marcy says, Roleplay Rumble, interested. Just email me if you have questions about that. Anna@sparkingprogress.com. Perfect. All right, I think we're good. You have 4 extra minutes in your day. What are you going to do with your 4 minutes? That is probably enough time to make a cup of coffee. You could take, if you have not taken your vitamins, maybe go do that. I'm going to go into the chiropractor. That's what I'm going to do. All right, guys, I'll see you later. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. See you soon.